Hello friends! Today I am taking you with me to String & Story, which is a sewing shop, quilt shop, fabric shop down in downtown Duluth. And we're gonna go and meet Holly Ann, the owner, and we're gonna have an announcement later in this video. You're gonna understand why once we get there and start playing with things. First, I need to pack up my filming equipment and maybe we should stop at Starbucks. I'm feeling festive. All right, let's go. You're coming with, silly. Thanks, have a good one. All right, so that drive was so easy, so good. My coffee was amazing, and now we're gonna go. I'm in downtown Duluth, and it is already Christmas down here, which is kind of fun. It's like November 17th filming this. I don't know when it's gonna go live, so I'll just fill you in on the date. But it is also 72 degrees out, so it feels so weird to be like, Christmas, but I am sweating balls. But we're gonna go into the into String & Story and see Holly Ann, and I'll share you some cool stuff when we get there. Hello! You wanna be in the vlog? Yes, you do. You're like, I'm the star of the vlog. Hey, try telling Eva that. Yeah, hi, you smell my baby.
Before we get into the real reason I'm at String & Story, I just wanted to take a moment to encourage everyone watching this to Google local sewing machine or quilt shops. If you find one close to you, think about seeing if they offer sewing classes at any level. Do they offer cosplay or costume making sewing classes? If so, what do they offer? If not, what would you be interested in them offering? Take a trip to your local shop and see if you can at least test machines or if they'll service your own sewing machine. Local quilt and sewing shops are a great resource for sewing supplies and education, so utilize them. And finally, if you are in the greater Atlanta area and you can make your way out to Duluth, definitely check out Holly Ann's shop. It's warm and welcoming, and Holly Ann really cares about cosplay and garment sewing just as much as she cares about quilting. Now, let's open this box.
Oh my gosh, so this just goes here.
Yeah, and then you never lose it. Isn't that genius?
And then this is where I get to put all my goodies.
A little built-in Barbie box. Yeah, zipper.
These are my favorite.
Let's see. Oh, there we go.
There we go. And then the table.
Just a regular piece of quilting cotton, and then this is like based on like a quilt and some rayon because you know rayon.
This is soft. Of course, I like floor it.
Of course, that's
hello,
how I would
welcome
do
to
it.
my world.
Yeah.
Ooh, those stitches are so nice.
Dude, this does go lower for zigzag.
Ooh. I'm down to 0.2.
Oh wow.
Which means you get this nice and schmacky satin stitch.
Also, the great thing is if you turn it off and turn it on again, it resets everything.
Oh, okay.
So push buttons.
That changes things. No, it's doing it.
Cool.
The 84 is this little star. Oh, fun. Hello friends. So I bet you're wondering what this huge announcement is, and I'm finally here to share with you what's been going on behind the scenes and kind of give you an idea of what you can expect from me next year. So for starters, the reason that I went to String & Story was because I've actually partnered with String & Story to teach garment construction and cosplay classes there. We have a couple classes planned for next year, which I will be announcing as they come up, but I'm also excited
to announce that I have partnered with Burnett. Burnett is a sewing machine company owned by Bernina. They basically are a high quality machine made with metal parts. This machine in particular is computerized. What my partnership is going to look like is, yes, I will have an affiliate link for this exact machine that we will be threading and making a skirt with today. We're going to make this skirt so that you can kind of get an idea of just the basic things that you can make with this machine. And then you're going to see me using this machine quite a bit this year. I have hopefully a mini Christmas project coming up after this. And then after that, I'll be using it for some other projects that I'm not going to announce yet because, you know, I gotta make y'all wait. Let's do the thing. Okay, so this is the B38. This machine has something like over 80 stitches. It is computerized. We are just gonna focus on the straight stitch right now in this moment, but as I make content for this YouTube channel, we'll talk a little bit more about what else it can do. So something else that I really like about this machine is that it does come with a basically quilter table. So if you wanted to, you could pop this off. This is also where I store all of my sewing machine stuff. Pop this off and you can place this on. So if you're sewing something like a petticoat and you need the extra space, this will help you. We won't need that today. Here we are with our sewing machine. It does have a manual lever down, like so. You do manually thread it. It does have a needle threader, which is right here. This is just Gutermann polyester thread, or what they call like all-purpose thread. Black is kind of the most likely to snap. I sew a lot of black clothing here. Having a black thread that does not break on me is very important. Before you can even thread your machine, you need to make sure that you have your sewing machine pedal and that you plug it in appropriately, as well as your electrical cord, and have that plugged in as well. Then you can flip the switch on. There you go. Now your machine is completely turned on. Okay, so my spool of Gutermann thread is actually gonna go on this pin right here. I'm gonna take this little hat off and I'm going to place my thread so that when I pull it, my thread comes this way, and then I'm gonna put my hat back on. The reason I have this piece is because if I don't have it, this will just get all wobbly and it'll go up and down the pin. It can fly off if you're sewing too fast. It's just a monster and a nightmare, and it's actually not great for the tension of your machine. Now we're here. Before I actually thread my machine, I want to fill a bobbin. A bobbin goes on the bottom of your machine, right down here. I will show you how to place this in a hot minute, but this bobbin is gonna sit up here so that we can wind it. The purpose of this bobbin is so that when we're sewing, our thread on top is going to go down, the bobbin is gonna loop around it and then pull back up, and that's how we create our stitch. Sarah Spaceman has an amazing video on how this works. I will link it below, and I highly recommend following her for really in-depth tutorials. Now I am going to wrap my thread around my pin, my little screw here. You'll notice that there's this piece that lifts up. This is what I am putting my thread in. Now with my thread here, there is actually a little hole in this bobbin right here, and I'm going to take and place my thread into that hole. All right, with my bobbin here, pressed up against the side, I'm gonna hold my thread like so, a little loose, and I'm gonna tap on my pedal. See how that winds that? Now that I have a little bit wound, I'm just gonna trim this right up here. All right, and then I'm gonna floor it. Now that my bobbin is full, I can trim it like so. All right, so now I have a bobbin. All right, now it's time to place my bobbin in my machine. So this is my bobbin casing, and normally there's a cover on it, and there is this lovely button here that you push. There's an arrow so that you can see and take it out. There is also a fantastic diagram that shows you the orientation in which you should thread your bobbin. So if you ever forget, there's a picture right there, which is why I love modern machines. I'm going to place my bobbin so that if you look at it, I'm kind of making a P, like a P for, I don't know, Philadelphia. So I'm making a P, and I'm going to place my bobbin in. There is a hook right here,
and I'm going to hook my thread under that. I like to put my finger on my bobbin while I do this because otherwise, if I don't, it's just gonna keep spinning. So I'm gonna put my finger on my bobbin, and I'm actually going to wait until I feel my thread hook under this lovely hook right here, and then just draw it back. So now that it's drawn back, I can place my cover right back on it, and I do want it to kind of be back in this way. We will deal with this thread tail in a hot minute once we've threaded the top. Our thread is exactly where we left it from threading our bobbin. If you can see, it is hooked around this screw here. We actually don't want it to be hooked around that for doing our sewing, so we are gonna unhook it like that, and then we're gonna hook it around here. But just like what I did with the bobbin, where if I keep pulling the thread, it's just gonna keep getting undone, I'm actually going to use my left hand, which is my non-dominant hand. I'm going to use my left hand, and I'm just going to keep my finger on my thread up here. And there's arrows on my machine, here, here, down here, and right here. One really important thing when we get to this is that we actually are looking for a loop at the top. So I'm gonna actually bring this loop up at the top. And there it is. So with my loop up here, this is how I know I'm ready to thread my machine. So now I'm going to bring this down into this first channel to the right of this red dial. That red dial is our tension dial. And then I can bring it down. So I have my thread on the right of my loop. If you can see, there is an eye right in the middle of this loop here, and I want to make sure that my thread goes into that eye. If you can see, it is like this. So once my thread is through my eye, I'm going to bring it down just like so. So with my thread down here, there is a bar right here above my needle. I am going to place my thread into that bar. So if you can see now, it lines up closer to the needle and not right here in front of the machine. So with this, I can bring down my needle threader. So I am going to have my thread come under this loop here. And then there is a tiny microscopic loop that I can barely even see. It is harder for me to see this loop than it is for me to see the actual thread, the actual needle. But I'm gonna basically bring my thread up like this and bring it underneath that little hook that is right in here. I'm gonna bring this up and over and then pull that up. There we go. Okay. Wow, that was actually way easier than any needle threader I've ever done. We are almost done threading our machine. The last thing that we need to do is now bring our bobbin thread that is currently just hanging out right here. We actually need to bring it up through the machine. All right, so to do that, I'm gonna drop my needle down like so, and then bring it up. Okay, that took me a couple presses of the button that I just showed you, and now I have two pieces of thread that are coming through the bobbin slit down here, and we're ready to sew.
Back in August, I bought this brushed cotton from Joann Fabrics to use on the long version of the pattern I'm using today, which I got on Etsy. I'll link both items below. I've just enough of this fabric to make a short skirt if I don't cut the fabric on the fold. So let's do it. I already made one skirt at the shorter length and I marked it on my pattern, so all I really need to do is iron out my pattern and then place it on my fabric. This pattern is meant to be cut on the fold, but since my fabric isn't wide enough, I'm just going to have to create a seam down the center back of the skirt, and I think it'll look fine. It's important to iron both your pattern and your fabric so you have the best chance of everything lining up and fitting together perfectly. I'm working on this at night, so the light at the top of my Aliso mini project iron is coming in handy here. Okay, so normally this pattern needs to be done on a fold, but my fabric was not wide enough. So instead, I cut it on the selvage. This is basically the raw edge of the fabric when you purchase it. Because I cut it on this, I can sew these together and not worry about finishing the hems. However, if you are not as lucky as I am, you will want to do what's called a French seam. And that means that you will actually want to sew these together with the wrong sides together, and then trim them down, flip it, pin it, and sew them with the right sides together. But this is going to be sufficient for this skirt. These are the first stitches on this new machine. Whee! I'm excited. To stitch, I'm going to line up the edge of my fabric at the 1/2 of an inch mark on my machine. Then I'm going to drop the foot with the lever, hit the needle button to drop the needle into my fabric. I am going to sew about an inch or so, and then I'm going to use the back stitch button to secure my stitch, and then stitch forward all the way to the bottom of the skirt, back stitch. And finally, I can hit the cut thread button on this machine and trim my thread. Half of sewing is pressing. I know that's annoying, but to get everything to lay flat and look good, you have to give it a press. So I'm pressing my seam open before moving on to the next step. For the front opening, I'm going to fold my front seam toward the wrong side 1/2 of an inch, press that, and then fold it again about 1.5 inches away. Then I can pin it and stitch this down. Now for the hem. And yes, we are right back at the ironing board. I'm going to press the hem of the skirt up by 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to fold it another 1/2 inch, and this will enclose the raw edge in on itself. Now I can sew my hem down, and I'm getting very close to a finished skirt. First, something I really like about this machine is right here, this knob. This can actually change the speed of the stitching while you're sewing, and I personally like that because there are times when I'm doing something a little bit more difficult and I want to go slower, but my foot just wants to like press down, pedal to the metal, right? Another thing, so this material right here, because we are using like a wool flannel type, I don't remember what this material makeup is, but it's thick. This is a thick material, right? So because this material is so thick, I actually want to lengthen my stitch length. So right here it says that it's a 2.4, which means it's 2.4 millimeters. I want to bring it up to 3.5. And the reason that I want to do that is because I want my stitch length to be longer so that it can go through all of these layers easily. Otherwise, if it's too close together, it will just have major issues going through it, and that will cause problems in the long run. I'm going to stitch this hem, and then we'll keep it at this for the stitch length of the waistband. For the waistband, I'm going to start by folding my fabric in half hot dog style. I'm going to press this and then pin and sew the 2 shorter edges, stopping 1/2 inch away from the long edge. Now I'm going to flip the waistband so that the right side of the fabric is out, and then I will press under one side of the long edge. Lining up the middle back seam with the middle of the waistband, I'm going to pin 1/2 of the waistband onto the skirt. This is the side of the waistband that did not get pressed under to the right side of the skirt, or the side of the skirt that will be seen. The final step in attaching the waistband is to fold over the band and stitch it down. I'm very excited to get to test out the buttonhole feature on this machine. To do this, I pressed the buttonhole button on my machine. I changed my foot to the buttonhole foot with the button I'm using placed in it, and then I got my scrap fabric for a test because this fabric is really thick, so I really wanted to test it out first and make sure that it could actually make a buttonhole. Now, all that's left to do is hand sew a few buttons onto my skirt. The B38 actually has a button sewing feature, but I've never sewn a button on by machine before, and it kind of terrifies me. So, if you'd like me to overcome this fear, let me know in the comments below. And now, time to head to the cemetery with a book and give this skirt a twirl. Thank you so much for watching this video. You can purchase the B38 from the link in my description, and it really helps me purchase materials for certain high quantities of silk for a certain French ball that is coming up in the spring. Also, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, and until next time, stay spooky.